And it's not just about investments. It's a lot more. It's about building, growing, and making sure things are sustainable across a whole bunch of different sectors. We've got research articles, project overviews. We even got our hands on some internal documents.
It's interesting how Beat Capital goes beyond just the usual investment stuff. They have a really multifaceted approach.
So they're more than just an investment, sure.
Exactly. They call themselves a project development and advisory firm. It's like they don't just give money and hope for the best. They're right there working with their partners to get things done from the very beginning all the way through.
That's cool, that hands-on approach. Like a craftsman shaping something beautiful and strong.
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it. And to get to that level, they've got 9 different categories for their services, each one focused on something specific. It's like a toolbox with all the right tools for the job.
9 categories. That's a lot.
It is. So there's project development services, where they take a project from an idea and make it real. Then there's project and corporate finance advisory services that help businesses get funding and manage their money. And there's one I think you'll find really interesting: ecosystem development advisory services.
Ecosystem development. What is that?
It's a smart strategy. BAPCapital knows that it's not enough for just one business to succeed. It's about building an environment where everyone can work together, be creative, and grow. They're actively creating these ecosystems by getting people to partner up, share what they know, and make whole industries stronger. It's a really big picture approach.
Like planting seeds that'll grow into a whole forest.
Exactly. And they're doing this in a bunch of areas, from biotech and education to agriculture, power, and infrastructure. It's pretty amazing how much they know.
I saw something about their work with the Internet of Things, or IoT. It seems like they're getting noticed around the world for what they're doing in Nigeria. What's going on there?
They're leading the way with IoT in Africa. They can handle consumer, commercial, industrial AI, even infrastructure stuff. It's amazing how they've taken these technologies and made them work for Africa.
So they're not just copying and pasting solutions. They're making sure it fits each project in place.
Exactly. They're also really into this thing called platform as a service, or PaaS. It means they're not just connecting devices, they're building entire service systems around those technologies, like software as a service, infrastructure as a service, and even energy as a service.
Oh, this is getting pretty technical. It's awesome to see them using this stuff to make things better in Africa. But let's switch gears for a second and talk about how they develop projects. I read that they have 4 main pillars for their work. Can you tell us about those?
Of course. So the first one is a differentiated project commercialization strategy. Basically, they adapt their approach for each industry and project. They want to make sure that their plan to make money from the project fits the market.
Yeah, that makes sense. One size fits all wouldn't work in such a diverse place. So what's the second pillar?
The second one is all about making the best use of their money. They're careful about how they spend it throughout the entire project.
Smart, especially when these projects can have such a big impact. Nobody wants to see wasted resources.
Yeah, what about the last 2 pillars?
Yeah, so the third one is about getting things done. BEAPCapital doesn't just start a project and walk away. They keep a close eye on things, making sure everything stays on track and they get the results they want. And the last pillar is about relationships. They know that to be successful, you need more than just agreements. You need trust, understanding, and everyone working together.
It's like they're building connections between investors, businesses, and communities. Speaking of bridges, let's go back to their private equity services. What makes them stand out in that world?
Their private equity services are all about helping African businesses grow. They do that with long-term financing and solutions that are made just for them. They really get to know their partners and their businesses so they can figure out the best way to finance things.
So it's not a one-size-fits-all kind of thing? No, not at all. And they're really experienced. They know a lot about different industries. They understand Africa, and they have connections all over the world. They even bring in other financial people when they need to put together big funding packages.
Wow. It sounds like they're really dedicated to finding the right answer for each partner, even if it takes extra work. We talked about ecosystem development advisory services before, too. I'm really curious about that. Can you tell me more about how BEAPCapital makes those ecosystems happen?
It's a really cool approach. It shows how BEAPCapital thinks about the long term. They know that it's not enough for just one company to do well. It's about creating a network where businesses, institutions, and people can all help each other grow.
So everyone's working together and sharing in the success.
Right. They help people make partnerships. They create ways for people to share knowledge. They invest in training, and they work to get rid of anything that might be stopping growth in a certain area.
I bet that's really important in places where it's hard to get resources and expertise. It's like they're making the ground fertile so new ideas can grow.
Exactly. And it's not just about making money, it's about tackling the big problems that Africa is facing, like making sure people have enough food, making healthcare more available, and coming up with ways to get energy that doesn't hurt the environment.
So their business goals match up with bigger goals for society. Everyone wins.
That's the plan.
Yeah.
And they're not just talking about it, they're putting their money where their mouth is. Look at their work in agriculture, for example. They've been really important in creating a cutting-edge platform that uses technology to help small farms.
That sounds really cool.
Yeah.
I'm always interested in how technology can help make things better in developing countries.
Yeah.
Tell me more about how this platform is helping.
This platform is a game changer. It brings together sensors, data analysis, and mobile technology to give farmers real-time information about the weather, soil health, how their crops are doing, and prices at the market.
It's like giving them digital tools to help them make smart choices.
Exactly. And by giving them this information, BAPCapital is helping them reduce waste, earn more money, and make sure their communities have enough food.
Wow, that's amazing. It's a perfect example of how technology, when used the right way, can really change things. I'm sure it wasn't easy to set this platform up, especially in rural areas where internet access and knowing how to use technology could be problems.
There are always challenges when you're trying to introduce new technologies, but BEAPCapital worked with local farming groups, research centers, and technology companies to make sure the platform worked for the farmers and the place where they live.
They didn't just show up with a solution that wasn't going to work. They took the time to understand what was going on.
Exactly. And they also taught the farmers how to use the platform. It's not enough to just give people the technology. You have to make sure they know how to use it to make their lives better.
You can tell they're not just focused on making money. They really want to make a difference. Speaking of making a difference, we haven't talked much about their work with the Internet of Things. What are some of the exciting things they're doing in that area?
Their work with IoT is really innovative. They're doing all kinds of things like smart agriculture, connected healthcare, smart cities, and even using it in factories. They're also using it to make energy more efficient and make sure people have clean water.
It sounds like there are so many possibilities. It's great to see them using this technology to tackle some of the big problems facing Africa. Now, you said earlier that BEAPCapital is really into platform as a service, or PaaS. To be honest, I don't know much about that. Can you explain it like I'm five? What is PaaS and how is BEAPCapital using it?
Sure. Think of PaaS as like the foundation for building and using software. Instead of companies having to build and manage their own complicated IP systems, they can use a PaaS provider like BEAPCapital to handle all that behind-the-scenes work. Then the companies can focus on creating their own services, whether it's an app, a website, or a system for analyzing data.
It's like providing a stage that's ready to go so the company can focus on the show instead of setting up the lights and sound.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. BEAPCapital is using this approach to offer a bunch of as-a-service solutions. So, for example, they offer software as a service, or SaaS, where companies can use software over the internet without having to install it. They also have infrastructure as a service, or IaaS, which gives companies access to things like server storage and networks whenever they need them.
So they're making the technical side of things easier and cheaper for businesses,
Yeah,
which makes it easier for them to try new things and be innovative.
exactly. And that's a big part of what they're all about, helping businesses, especially in emerging markets, to use technology and grow in a sustainable way. They're not just giving them tools, they're creating a space where businesses can do well.
This is all really impressive. It seems like BEAPCapital is doing it all, from developing projects to financial services to cutting-edge technology. It's like they have a plan for everything.
They do. They really are putting their words into action when it comes to making a difference and being innovative. They're not just after money. They really care about making Africa a better place.
Their work is inspiring. But before we finish up, I want to go back to their work with the Internet of Things. I read that they've had some challenges putting those solutions into place in Nigeria. What kind of problems did they run into and how do they solve them?
Well, one of the biggest things was just the infrastructure. Like, in lots of parts of Nigeria, electricity and internet access aren't that reliable, and that can make it hard to set up and use those IoT devices.
So they needed a constant power supply and a good internet connection. How did they get around that? I bet that took some creative thinking.
It did. Sometimes they teamed up with local telecom companies to make the internet better in those remote areas, and they also tried using solar power to run their devices. It really shows how dedicated they are to finding solutions.
So they had to become experts in more than just technology.
Right.
They had to figure out logistics, infrastructure, and even how to work with the community.
That's a really good point. It shows you how they look at the whole picture. They get that technology is just one part of it. To make IoT work, you have to deal with everything around it, like infrastructure, education, and even the laws.
They weren't just throwing technology at the problem and hoping for the best. It sounds like they really took their time to understand the situation. Now, we've covered a lot today. We've talked about their services, their projects, and how committed they are to sustainability. But I think what really makes them stand out is how much they believe in their values.
Definitely. It's not just something they say, it's part of how they do business. You can see it in how open they are, how they work with partners, and how much they want to help communities.
You mentioned being open. I saw that they put a lot of effort into showing the impact of their work and talking to people about it. Why is that so important to them?
It all comes down to trust. BEAPCapital wants to show that they're not just about making money. They want to create something valuable for their partners, their investors, and the people they work with. They think that by being honest about what they do and the impact it has, they can build stronger relationships and inspire others.
It's not often you see a company that's so open, especially in that world. It makes you realize that they're not just trying to make a profit. They really want to change things.
And you can see that change in the lives they're affecting, the businesses that are growing, and the communities that are getting stronger. They're showing what's possible when you combine good business with a real desire to make a difference.
Well, this has been a really eye-opening look into BEAPCapital. They're changing what it means to do business in Africa. They've shown us that you can make money and do good at the same time, and that working together is the best way to make things better.
Absolutely. Their story shows you what people can do when they work hard, do the right thing, and believe in the future of Africa.
Before we go, I want to leave you with one last thought. BEAPCapital is showing that there's a different way to do business. One where it's not just about taking, but about giving, and not just about today, but about the future. What if everyone did business this way? What would the world look like if more companies thought like this? It's something to think about.
That's a great thought. And it reminds us that we all have a part to play in creating a better world. Whether you're an investor, a business owner, or just someone who cares, you can support companies like BEAPCapital companies that are trying to make the world a better place.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So until next time, keep asking questions, keep learning, and keep believing in a better future.